The soft sound of a piano drifted through the morning air, the kind of melody that felt like light coming through a curtain before anyone else in the house was awake. In the world of high-stakes corporate engineering, a single mistake can cost a fortune. But a deliberate one, the kind someone plants with cold intention and a clean alibi, can be worth far more. Dominic Wells understood the weight of a single component the way most men understood the weight of a handshake. He had spent 12 years inside the noise and heat and exquisite pressure of professional motorsport, building engines that didn't just perform, they won. As chief powertrain engineer for Meridian Racing, he had stood in the paddock at 17 different championship events and watched machines he designed from the ground up cross finish lines first. The trophies were real. The knowledge was permanent. And none of it on this particular Tuesday morning was doing him any good at all. He stood in front of the bathroom mirror in his small apartment and adjusted a collar that had seen better years. The blue tie was Ella's choice. She had held up two options with the grave deliberation of someone making a decision that mattered, then pointed at the blue one without hesitation. "You look very handsome, Daddy," she had said, in the quiet, certain tone she used for things she had already decided were facts. "They're going to like you." She was 6 years old and had never once been wrong about anything that actually counted. He kissed the top of her head, handed her off to Mrs. Peralta next door, and walked out into the morning carrying her certainty like a second wallet. The grief had rearranged him. That was the only honest way to describe what losing Claire had done. Not broken him, not destroyed him, but moved every room in the house of who he was into a different configuration. She had passed on a Tuesday in October 3 years ago, quietly and without warning, the way the worst things always arrived. Since then, his world had a different center of gravity. Everything orbited Ella now. Ella and Button, her stuffed rabbit with the slightly flattened ear and the soft worn patch on its left cheek where she pressed her face every night. He had rebuilt his entire life around a 6-year-old and a rabbit, and on most mornings that felt like exactly enough reason to keep going. But the bills were overdue. The interview was in 40 minutes. And Dominic Wells, former chief powertrain engineer, multiple championship winner, a man whose hands had touched some of the most sophisticated mechanical systems ever built for civilian use, was applying for a sales position at a car dealership. Prestige Auto Group occupied a glass and steel building on the better side of the city, the kind of place that smelled of citrus diffusers and new leather and a very specific variety of money. Old enough to be comfortable, new enough to still care what it looked like. The showroom floor was immaculate. The cars sat under surgical lighting like exhibits in a museum of aspiration. Dominic walked in and immediately felt the temperature of the room change the way it does when something out of place has been noticed but not yet named. Jason was the hiring manager. He was the kind of man who had learned to make quick evaluations and had never once questioned the accuracy of them. He looked at Dominic's resume for approximately 45 seconds. Then he looked at Dominic's hands. There were calluses on his palms, earned ones, the kind that came from years of real work. There was a faint trace of grease at the base of his thumbnails, the ghost of 1,000 hours under hoods and inside engine bays, the kind of stain that didn't fully leave no matter how carefully you scrubbed. Jason had already finished thinking. Everything that came after was just the formality of the conversation. 12 years at Meridian, Jason said in the tone of someone noting a fact they found irrelevant. Racing background, chief powertrain engineer, Dominic said. Multiple championship seasons, oversaw the full design and integration cycle on 4 successive engine generations. Right. Jason set the resume down. Here's the thing. We're not looking for someone to diagnose the cars. We need someone to sell them. Client-facing, premium experience. This is a luxury environment. He said the word luxury the way some people said the word obviously. We need someone who fits that. Dominic looked at him steadily. I understand what you're saying. Jason's expression made clear that he considered the matter settled. The interview lasted another 4 minutes and concluded with the kind of handshake that is really a dismissal in a different shape. Dominic walked back through the showroom. The weight of the overdue bills moved through his chest as adamant. The rent, the utilities, Ella's after-school program, the numbers that did not currently add up. He walked past a display case, past a row of gleaming vehicles under their precise lights, and then he stopped. It was positioned at the center of the showroom floor like an altarpiece, the Orion X9. $18 million of prototype rescue vehicle, a machine built for high-load emergency deployment in environments where standard vehicles fail. Glass and steel and aerospace engineering compressed into something that looked almost organic, the way the most serious pieces of engineering always did. Most people who walked past it saw a masterpiece. They saw the surface. Dominic didn't see the surface. His eyes moved the way they always moved around machinery, systematically, without thinking about it, looking for the story the components were telling. He stopped walking. There, beneath the secondary power routing harness tucked into the front left wheel well with the casual confidence of something that assumed it would never be noticed. A bolt, zinc-coated, standard grade. In a vehicle of this caliber, every fastener was aerospace-grade titanium, specified to exact tolerances, documented in a component's manifest that would run to several hundred pages. This bolt did not belong here the way a paper cup did not belong on the hood of the Sistine Chapel. Dominic crouched down, his brow pulled tight. He reached into his jacket pocket, a reflex, and found the thermal scanner he always carried, a $40 unit that his colleagues at Meridian had mocked for years, right up until the moments it found things their $200,000 diagnostic systems had missed. He ran it slowly along the harness routing. "Do you actually think you belong under my technology?" The voice was precise and cold in the way that certain voices were cold. Not from cruelty, but from the long practice of never being surprised by anything. Dominic looked up. Charlotte Voss stood in the center of the showroom floor, and the room had reorganized itself slightly around her arrival in the way rooms did around people accustomed to occupying their center. She owned 14 dealerships. She had built the Prestige Group from a single import lot into a regional institution over 23 years. She had an expression that had been trained over decades into a state of controlled evaluation. Dominic stood up slowly. He met her eyes. His voice when he spoke was level and without apology. "I'm not here to touch your technology, ma'am. I'm here to tell you that this vehicle is a crime scene." The showroom went silent and the weigh rooms went silent when the wrong person had been right, and everyone present understood it before they'd fully processed the words. Jason appeared at Charlotte's shoulder almost immediately. "Ms. and Voss, I apologize for this. This gentleman was just leaving. Give him 3 minutes," Charlotte said. She did not look at Jason when she said it. 3 minutes. Dominic used them the way he had learned to use tight windows of time inside the paddock. Economically, without waste, saying only what the evidence said. Not for the jacket he was wearing, or the collar that had seen better years, or the calluses on his hands, or the ghost of grease that wouldn't quite wash out. Seen for what lived underneath all of that. The integrity that had made him crouch down when he could have kept walking, the knowledge that was real because it had been built with real years, the refusal to pretend he hadn't noticed the thing he had noticed. Ella slid off her chair and came to stand beside him at the stove, leaning against his leg. "Did they like you?" she asked. Dominic looked down at her. "Yeah," he said. "They did." She nodded, entirely unsurprised. "I told you," she said, and went back to her chair. Running back to her chair. Never mistake the moment someone falls for the moment they are defeated. Sometimes the person on the floor is the only one in the room willing to crouch down and see what everyone else has decided isn't worth looking at. The most expensive thing in any room is not always the object under the brightest light. Sometimes it is the person standing quietly at the edge of it with $40 worth of tools and 12 years of knowledge that no rejection letter can take back, waiting for someone with enough sense to ask them what they see. Brilliance doesn't always arrive in the right packaging. Integrity doesn't always carry the right credentials. But when something is wrong, when the bolt doesn't belong, when the numbers don't add up, when the room is too quiet in a way that means something, the person who is made to see it will always see it. You cannot train that out of someone. You cannot hire around it. And you cannot, no matter how cold your voice or how certain your first impression, make it stop being true. The piano faded into something gentle and unhurried, the way a good day settled into evening. If this story moved something in you, subscribe to Pure Kindness for more stories about the worth hidden inside ordinary people living extraordinary moments of quiet courage. Every soul has a story that deserves to be told. What is a moment from your own life where your real value was finally seen? Where the right person finally looked past the surface and recognized what you actually carried? Leave it in the comments. We read every one, and someone scrolling through tonight might need to hear exactly what you have to say.